All right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pennsylvania Beef Council's virtual veal tour. So I'm Caitlin Carey, and I work on behalf of the Pennsylvania Beef Council, and we're excited to be sharing this opportunity with you all this morning as we tour a veal farm here in Pennsylvania. So we have 3 different classes from Pembroke Middle School joining us live today, as well as many folks who will be receiving this via recording. So I wanted to welcome Pembroke, and then we're going to start, but kick things off by heading out to the farm and meeting PA veal producers Jeff and Dana Gessner. So we're also going to be joined today by Dean Mullet. So he's a feed representative within the veal industry, and then their veterinarian, Dr. Lauren. So we're going to head out to the farm and let them introduce themselves.
Hi guys, my name is Dana Gessner and this is my husband Jeff. We welcome you to our veal farm today. We're happy that you have this opportunity to see where veal comes from. Veal calves are about 500 to 600 pounds when they're ready to go to market. Veal is a very nutrient-dense meat product that you can consume in your diet. These guys here are 15 weeks old, so they live with us till they're 20 to 22 weeks and get well cared for. They get a good healthy diet, and you can see they live in pens with our little herd that they get to socialize with every day. They start out as about 100-pound baby calves when they come in. They're about 3 to 4 days old, and they get fed a milk diet along with some grain throughout their production cycle. There's about 230 calves in this barn. Half of them are this size right now, and the other half are smaller. I don't know how many weeks old they are. They're about 6 or 7 weeks old and along in their production cycle with us. That's kind of an overview of what we do. We've been farming here for 20 plus years, 20 years. We decided on veal farming as a way to maintain our family farm. And we have no signal.
Yes, one question we had, Dana and Jeff, was what do you find most interesting and fascinating about veal farming? So if you could just touch on that, maybe why you got into it and why you've continued to raise veal for 20 plus years.
Okay. Well, we needed something to put on the farm as an income earner to sustain our family farm business. And veal calves fit our profile and what we wanted to do with our lifestyle. It is I'm a dairy girl. I grew up on a dairy farm my whole life. I've been around cows. And so I got the dairy end of it growing up, and we always, this is kind of, we take the little boy calves off the dairy farm and finish them out to their market potential. And yeah, dairy farming is very hard. This might not be quite as hard. We can have a little bit of a life, I guess. It's still every day, though. It's 7 days a week. Christmas, New Year's, it doesn't matter if it's your birthday. You got to come to the barn twice a day and feed your calves and make sure everybody's healthy and doing well. It takes about 6 hours a day in the barn to make sure the feeding chores are done and everybody's looked after. If there's any health needs that need to be addressed, they get taken care of as well. Jeff actually is the stay-at-home farm guy. He's here every day and every day and every day. I help with the baby calves and when we get them started, because they're a little bit more work because they are small and need extra hands to get them going and growing well in the beginning. I don't know, Jeff, what do you want to add?
Yeah, so you touched on feeding the calves and how that takes up a large chunk of Jeff's day. So maybe we could have, I know we have some pictures and some videos that Jeff shared with us. So maybe he can just kind of talk through what his typical day looks like in terms of feeding the calves, and we can show those pictures to the students and play those videos.
Okay. This is our farm. It consists of about 80 acres of tillable ground. The barn on the right is the white barn, as a calf barn. The red brown roof barn is a steer barn. We have about a 40 head beef operation here also. This is a view of the calf barn. It's a naturally ventilated barn. You can see the curtains go up and down. In the summertime, the curtains are open like that, wide open, so it's always sunshine and fresh air flowing through the barn. In the winter, as the temperatures change, we can adjust them curtains to keep the calves warm and more comfortable. These are the way we start the babies. They're all in individual little boxes like this for like 4 weeks. We do this so we can better take care of each individual calf. It's easier to see what each calf is doing when they're separated from each other versus if they would all be in one big pen to start them. If you have individuals that aren't doing good scouring or something like that, which is our biggest problem in the first couple of days of the calves that we have them.
Right, so like you said, you spend several hours in the barn, so obviously starting those calves out in individual pens, it's a lot easier for you as you're walking through and feeding them and things like that. It would be a lot simpler for you to manage, hey, this one wasn't eating well today, or we need to keep an eye on this one when we come back this afternoon. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct, yes. And every day starts at 4:30 in the morning. I mean, we get down here and we get we walk the calves, pre-walk the calves, make sure everybody's okay, and then start mixing milk for them and feed them. And then throughout the day, I periodically check them probably 4 or 5 times throughout the day also.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So we're talking about how you feed your calves milk and some grain, but what do you do in terms of water? Is the water supplied the same time, or do they have free access to water all the time?
When the babies are in their individual little boxes, we need to water them, each calf individually. After they're taken out of these little individual pens, the whole pen is opened up like you see right there. There is a pre-choice water hanging or two in each pen that has nipples on it. They can drink water 24 hours a day whenever there's a picture of them. They can drink water 24 hours a day whenever they want it.
Awesome. So I think we have a short video clip just showing, how they access those waterers. So we're going to show that to you all just so you can see the fact that, those calves, whenever they're thirsty, just like you or I, they can get up and get a drink.
Now, those waterers are hung from the ceiling, and as the calves get bigger, they can be pulled up on pulleys that will allow them to go higher, that the calves can reach them better. The thing, our theory on this was if the waters are hanging like that, as they go underneath them and drink them, they're consuming all of it instead of letting it run out of their mouth. If you have a nipple coming straight out and you have a big calf that's taller and the nipple is lower than what he is, when he drinks, it's going to run out on the floor. This way, I don't think we have as much water waste with this system like we have it here.
Awesome. So next what we're going to do is show kind of the picture of where you mix the milk, and maybe you can just talk us through kind of how that works and what's involved.
These are stainless steel mixing vats. Each one of them holds about 2,000 pounds of milk. There's one for each room. When we originally built the barn, we done that because my sons were home and they would come down and help me, and we could feed both rooms at the same time. Okay, adding the hot water and agitating it, we let it mix at 150 degrees for about 6 to 8 minutes, and then begin cooling it down to the temperature that we feed it to the calves.
So what I'm hearing is it's very scientific. You kind of repeat the same process throughout each day, so the calves really maintain a schedule and kind of a routine, much like you or I would. They kind of know what to expect and when their food's coming and things like that.
They're very much creatures of habit. If you change anything, they notice it. I mean, we try to make everything as consistent as what we can. When we're mixing milk in here, we're very close on and really keep a good track on how much we feed them and temperatures and stuff. If you're feeding calves, you might mix up 1,500 pounds of milk and feeding 115 calves, and we can come out to within a pound or two of milk left that everybody is just getting the right amount.
So with that being said, you're talking about, the precision. So who do you work with to make sure that you're adjusting the feed needs of the calves as they continue to grow? Do you kind of work with somebody within the industry, or? use prior knowledge? How does that work?
Well, we have a feed rep that comes to our barn every so often, and then also Dr. Lauren is here sometimes on a weekly basis. If we get little calves, she comes usually on a weekly basis, or generally she's on an every other week. But the feed rep will keep us informed on, and we have a schedule book that we go by, but he will keep us informed on changes that need to be made and so forth.
Awesome. So it's all very science-based, and you're following a protocol that's been established and things like that.
There's a lot of protocols that are put into place. Yes.
Awesome. So basically, can you explain to us those bags that you're dumping into the vat in the video? Can you explain to the students what's in those bags? And
well, it's a milk replacer ingredient. Maybe the feed rep could elaborate a little bit more on what all is in there. I can hand it to him and let him explain to you what's in there.
Sure, that'd be great.
So what you're seeing there is it's a milk replacer, and it comes from the dairy industry. It's a byproduct of when they make cheese, there's whey. So we developed a program. It's a milk replacer. It comes from the byproduct of the dairy industry. It's actually the same thing. You could make a milkshake out of that and make ice cream out of the same things that we're using to feed the calves as far as the milk replacer.
Right. And Dean, can you tell us the milk replacer that, Jeff uses on his farm every day, it mimics what those calves would be consuming if they were still with their mothers or something like that. So it's very similar to what they would be eating anyway, right?
Very similar to what they would be getting from their mom at birth, yes. But that's
awesome.
I have the fun part of this whole thing. I visit a lot of farms throughout the week, a couple different states. And I get to work with, Lauren, you can come over here as well, but I get to work with different veterinarians and a lot of different nutritionists. We work with a lot of universities to just come up with scientific-based formulas for these calves to raise the best calf that we can.
Awesome.
So I have the fun part.
Awesome. So I think what we're going to do now is we have some photos and some videos of Jeff actually feeding the calves, so we can give the students an idea of we can see those troughs behind you, but the video and pictures will kind of show better how that works. So you guys will see on the screen, there's those blue buckets, so they flip in and out of the trough. So like Jeff was talking about before, the calves kind of vary in size versus when they first come to the farm compared to when they're closer to their market weight. So you'll see those little buckets, they can flip them in and out of the trough. So Jeff can touch on this, but those smaller calves, when they first get started, are fed milk in the buckets. So we have a video again that will show that. But if Jeff or anybody there on the farm wants to add anything regarding, how they're fed or why they're fed in buckets versus troughs, feel free to do so.
Well, this is so we can individually take care of each calf better. I mean, we can see specifically what each calf drinks and what he don't drink. If there's a calf that's not feeling well someday and he don't want to drink his milk or something, we can see that he hasn't completed his milk. The little buckets turn out like that so we can put grain in there throughout the day for them to eat. And what we will do is we'll let them have free choice of grain like that, like overnight or throughout the day, and then flip the buckets in and give them their milk.
Awesome. So what the video we're showing now is you feeding the smaller calves.
Yes, they're being fed their milk ration right here now. And you can see they like it. They like it.
Yeah. And can you tell us the dispenser, do you just guess how much is going in each bucket, or is there a way you kind of regulate how much each calf is getting?
The thing that I'm holding there with my right hand it goes down into the bucket, and there's actually a simple theory to that. It's just a little hose clamp on there, and each calf, we weigh their milk. As they get a little bit bigger, when we start them, they may only get 3.5 or 4 pounds of milk, and as they progress to get bigger and do better, we keep increasing that volume, and just by matter of raising that hose clamp is how we can tell how much to feed them on each individual feeding.
Awesome. I think the next video clip, we're just going to show the difference of feeding those larger calves. So feeding those in the trough versus the buckets. So there's kind of the setup of the troughs and how those larger calves are in group pens.
Now the little guys that were in them other boxes there with the blue buckets, they're in them for 4 weeks, and then at 4 weeks we go through and thoroughly grade each calf on first we grade them by their drinking speed, and we try to put all the faster drinking calves and the medium drinking calves and the slower drinking calves, pen them up, group them up in pens. The reason we do that is if you put 2 or 3 slow drinking calves in with 7 or 8 big fast drinking calves, the slower ones won't get what they need. Calves are very, I guess you would call them aggressive. They like to, it seems like they do better when we put them together like this. They compete. These guys here that you're seeing right now, they're probably about 9 or 10 weeks old there. So they're drinking out of the trough right now. I think he'll show you that thing he's holding there has a meter on it, and there's so many gallons that you run in each trough as you increase them. If there's 10 calves in a pen and they're getting 10 pounds of milk, that would be 100 pounds of milk, and then you divide that by 8.6, and that's how many gallons you would run in each trough for 10 calves.
Awesome. So one question that we did have from one of Pembroke's students was, do you give the calves any supplements to make sure they are well nourished? So is there anything that they're getting beyond the milk replacer and the grain that we've seen?
Well, we can let Dr. Lauren answer that one.
So these calves are very closely monitored. So we do a full pool of blood when they're 2 weeks old, 8 weeks old, and then we monitor them at 14 weeks and 17 weeks. We do a 10% pool. So we're making sure that they have the right amount of iron, that they are healthy as far as their white blood cells and red blood cells, and that if they need extra supplements, we can add iron in. They can also get selenium early on, and probiotics especially when we first bring them in, when they're young and a little bit more susceptible to disease. And they're less susceptible, and we have to worry about them a little less. But those little babies, we definitely monitor pretty closely and make sure that they have everything that they need.
So it's super similar to if you or I were to go to the doctor and kind of get our yearly blood work just to make sure everything's in order and in line with where it should be.
Exactly, yeah. Just basically a regular old checkup for these guys.
Awesome. So while we have you here, Dr. Lauren, can you talk a little bit about kind of your involvement on Jeff's farm and you know, kind of the importance of why you're involved and the care that you offer to the calves?
So all of the protocols on these farms are developed with a veterinarian. And then I come every 2 weeks and just make sure that calves are doing well. We walk through the barns. We talk about calves that maybe are really early on sick. Jeff's pretty good about picking up all the small details that allow us to know that a calf is sick really early on and treat really quickly, which is what makes them, which improves their health basically. So yeah, so again, if you are sick and your mom calls the doctor, that's what Jeff does with me. And I probably talk to Jeff more than I talk to just about any other client. So,
so a lot of it, what I'm hearing is a lot of it is the preventative measures of Jeff walking through the barn every day, noticing if there's a calf that's kind of off feed, not drinking like he should, and really kind of calling you up and saying, hey, here's what's going on the farm. What should we be doing? Do you need to come out for a visit? Much like, you know, the doctor would tell us if we need to come into the office.
Exactly. Yeah. That is very much our relationship. So, yep.
Awesome. So now I think we're going to show a couple pictures of the calves eating solids, and maybe we could touch on the importance of kind of, we can see the grain in the troughs behind you guys. So maybe Dean could just touch on why those calves are also eating some solids. And so the pictures you can see show the larger calves with some of that grain that Jeff talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's a good question. We feed them a grain straw mix. There's corn, soybeans, and it's just to help aid them in the nutritional value that we feel working with nutritionists that needs to be part of their diet. As you see there, that's how they distribute the grain throughout the day. Jeff probably feeds grain 3-4 times a day, goes through and feeds them the grain. But that's a good part of their whole diet. It's probably about 40% of their diet is grain.
Okay. So we'll let you guys get a look at that.
What they're doing early on is trying to develop that rumen. So they're a ruminating animal.
So can you touch a little bit about, I know maybe some of our students aren't as familiar with what that means in terms of how cattle can eat different things than you or I. So how is their digestive system different than ours?
I think I'm going to pass that on to Dr. Laura.
So cows have 4 stomachs. The last one being most similar to ours, but the rumen is basically a big fermentation vat. So they can eat. This has it has grain in it, but also has some straw in it that allows for a healthy, nice, well-developed rumen. And that's going to be really important in keeping that, especially the cow, healthy, because that rumen is such an important part of their digestive system. So the milk goes mostly to the last stomach that's most like ours, but this grain is going to help go to that second stomach and really develop it well.
Perfect. So with the fact that, cows are ruminants and, you talked about a little bit about the different feed stuff that's in that grain mixture that they're eating. So what I'm hearing is, cows are really able to eat different products that us as humans can't consume. So once again, just kind of recycling some nutrients and different feed stuffs that we can't eat as humans, but at the end we have a safe, wholesome, nutritious product, veal.
Yeah, so, we're making sure that these animals, a lot of science and nutrition goes into developing the straw, corn, and grain mix, and you can see that they really want it because they're eating it out of my hand. But
yes,
they really
they
like
seem
it. Plus
very content.
But they are still calves, so they are quite happy to drink their milk too. So they are getting a really well-balanced diet.
Awesome. So before we go to the live question and answer, we had some questions come in ahead of time. So I was going to just touch on a couple that we haven't hit on. So we have some questions kind of surrounding the calves before they get there, kind of where they come from, the dairy farm. So one question was more of a general question. How many calves does a female have in her lifetime? So maybe Dr. Lauren or Dana, you can touch on that.
They'll usually have, once the cows will calve around 2 years old, and the idea is for a cow to have a calf every 13 months or so. So some cows will live to be 10 years old and can have 8 calves if they're really producing well. Some will have a little less than that, maybe 6 or 7. But it all kind of depends on how long they live. But yeah, I know
Awesome.
a cow that was 21 years old and had a calf every year. So.
Wow, crazy. Another general question in terms of the dairy cow where, these calves originate from is, what's the average size of a mama dairy cow? How big do they get?
Around, now we're looking at a full-size Holstein can be about 1,400 pounds. Your little brown jerseys are going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 pounds. So they're getting big. And these bull calves can almost get to be, if you grow them, that can be, I think 2,000 pounds easily.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's another option. There's some folks who feed dairy beef steers all the way out to that full mature beef animal weight.
Right.
But you guys keep them for about 20 to 22 weeks till they're about 500 or 600 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe too, we can touch on, we had a question. Obviously we can see, we've kind of heard the story as to how the calves are treated, how much time and dedication and science goes behind everything that happens there on the farm every day. But maybe you can touch a little bit, anybody there on the farm, about the housing and kind of the group housing initiative and the achievement that was made here back in early 2018.
I think I heard the question right. It was on the group housing.
Yep. Can you just touch a little bit about, kind of why the industry's transitioned to that group housing? And I know here in early 2018, the veal industry had a great achievement of all American veal growers transitioning to group housing. Kind of why is that important? Why are veal calves housed indoors versus outside?
We just on the group housing, they are herding animals. We put them in groups of 8 to 10 calves in a group. They like to herd. They like to snuggle together, if you say, and following more of the European model. This is what they do in Europe. They've been veal probably for probably close to 80 years already that people have been raising veal, and it's transitioned from individually penning them to these group pens, and just through science and working with veterinarians on better ways to raise calves, we felt that this is a better alternative for them. And in the winter we can keep the barn heated, and in the summer it's almost like an air conditioning barn. So there's a lot of benefits to keeping a calf indoors. But that would be the main reason, is just to control the environment the calves are in, make them more comfortable.
Right, just really controlling that environment allows them to thrive, because those conditions that they're living in are always going to be optimal. So much like you or I would turn on the air conditioning when it's 90 degrees and 80% humidity, those curtains really allow the air to flow the way the barn's designed.
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. So before we go into the kind of the live question and answer session, maybe Jeff and Dana, you guys can just emphasize again how many calves you have at one time and how many times throughout the year your barn's rotated with new calves coming in.
When the barn's full, we hold full capacity would be 232 calves, 116 in each room. We do a cycle system here. One side and the other side is usually about halfway through the cycle. So we run 2 whole cycles a year. So we would run four rooms of calves throughout a year. Because between calves, putting calves in, we need to wash the barn all down. Everything is washed and disinfected. The buckets are all washed and disinfected, and it takes a week or so just to get ready to get baby calves.
So what I'm hearing, one of the students asked, is there a certain time of the year that the calves come to you? But no, it's basically when you have a group that's ready to go to market, you'll go through the process of prepping the rooms and disinfecting and cleaning, and then wait for a new shipment of calves to come into you.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome. One other question that we had, so kind of once those calves are getting to that 20 to 22 week age and they're getting ready to get sent to market, one of the questions was, where do you send your calves for processing?
They go to a place out in Ohio is where they go for processing.
Awesome. And then one last question before we get to the live questions was, where are the majority of veal calves raised? So we're learning, they're the byproduct of the dairy industry. So they're those male calves that don't really have a job on the dairy farm. So where are, across the United States, where are most veal farms going to be found?
I think the majority of them, if I'm correct, Dean and I talked about this morning, I think there's 3 states that pretty much control, are the bulk of the veal calves are Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. There is calves in New York. There's veal farms in New York. There's veal farms in Wisconsin. There's quite a few veal farms, but yeah, I think a lot of it may be the weather conditions that we have here. We have nice, not overly hot summers. If you the further south you go, like if you go into the Virginias and the Carolinas, it's way too hot for the calves in the summertime. So I don't know if that's partially why that area that we're in is why it's the bigger area or not. But
more or less, it follows the dairy industry because we are a byproduct of the dairy. So we sort of, wherever there's dairy cows, a lot of times you find also veal.
Yep, that's what I was just going to touch on, Dean. We find a heavy concentration of veal producers in those dairy heavy states, just because logistically it makes sense from a transportation standpoint and having all those ingredients being kind of readily available and easily accessible. All right, so at this time, we're going to unmute Pembroke and see what further questions they have now that we've kind of gone through the tour. And with that, now that we've gone through most of what we wanted to show, maybe we can see if we can get the camera a little closer to the calves for you guys once we answer your questions.
I wrote down questions in class. Remember what they were? Other questions come up? If you want to ask a question, actually, I'll answer. There, you're going to look in here. But one quick question: how many employees are on your farm?
It's just me. When we get babies, I'll usually get some help. My wife will help, and I get a couple of the neighbor boys that will help because it's pretty busy, hectic time of the production cycle.
And that's 232 calves that you're taking care of at the most.
Correct. And then we have a 40 head beef operation also.
Farming. Okay, other questions, guys? Can you come up to on this camera? One other one, well, I'll just, because they're being shy. And some of these they have written down, but I'll just say them for them. Does anybody ever get attached to the cow, to the calf, like a pet?
I think that when you're raising production animals, you kind of find a balance between you care about your animals and you want them to have the best possible life. We obviously have Dr. Lauren and Dean come out whenever we need them to help manage health issues. But we're farmers. Our job is to raise a good food product to feed our country. So you've got to find a balance between having a pet and doing your job.
Go ahead, Natasha.
Hello. So like, I want to ask, why would the cow chewing on your hand and stuff in your pocket?
Why are they chewing? Just
they're curious. They're curious. They like to lick and so explore. We're something new and fun. Or I'm something new and fun. Jeff's always here, but so yeah, they like to chew on us because they part of an instinct too. I think they just like to suck on things, but yeah, they're just silly cats.
Okay. Any questions? You get to be on the camera. Anything else? Okay. I think we're pretty good with questions. Guys, shout them out. I can say them. What's the biggest? I guess the dairy cow. What's your biggest dairy cow?
We don't raise dairy cows on our farm here. The calves that we get come from dairy farms, but dairy cows on farms can, like we said before, can weigh 1,600 pounds,
Okay.
and live to 10, 12 years old.
Yeah. Do you have some beef cows
I work with that I can't see over.
Good? Okay. I think we're good.
Awesome. So since you guys had some questions about the size of the calves, we do have a visual that we're going to put up on the screen to kind of show you the size of the calves throughout their life cycle on Jeff's farm. So you'll see farthest to the left, it shows a newborn calf. So those dairy calves are 85 to 115 pounds at birth when they're born. Again, Jeff raises milk-fed veal calves, so he's going to raise them for 20 to 22 weeks, and at the time that they're ready for market, they're going to be pushing 500 pounds. Farthest on the right, you'll see the size comparison of a dairy beef steer. So there are some folks who will raise those steers all the way to a finished beef steer weight. So that takes 15 months and they'll be pushing 1,500 pounds. And then the next slide, we have a picture that just compares veal calves to other common market animals. So you'll see there on the screen, it compares a beef animal, veal, pork, turkey, and chicken. So in the middle there, it shows you the market weight. So at what weight are those animals ready to go to market for us to consume as protein? And then it will show the difference in terms of the days. So how long does it take to get that animal? So this just gives you a good comparison. You know, chickens only take 47 days. So veal are on the shorter end of the time it takes to raise them. If you compare it to pork or something like that, or beef. So this, we just wanted to show you as a way of showing, you know, the size difference as well as the length of time it takes to raise that animal. So with that, we'll just wrap things up. So again, we wanted to thank everybody. We want to thank Pembroke for joining us live today. And we're looking forward to getting this recording out to the additional schools who couldn't join us live today. But as always, you can reach out to the Pennsylvania Beef Council with any questions you have surrounding how beef and veal are raised within our state. So Pembroke, we're going to unmute you, and we just want to, again, thank everybody who was at Jeff and Dana's farm.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Yep, so thank you everybody for joining, and we appreciate having Jeff, Dana, Dean, and Dr. Lauren on hand to really show us what happens on the farm and how they're all involved, and kind of just showcase how veal is raised here within Pennsylvania. So with that, thank you all for joining and have a great day.
Have a perfect day.